世界の端っこまで消えることなく
Hi everyone, welcome to the Bread and Thorns podcast, a bi-weekly podcast where we sit down and discuss literature, art, media, and other stuff we really like and how they influence the projects that we're working on. I'm Isaac.
And I'm Rosemary.
And today we're going to discuss
Your Name.
Your Name is a Japanese animated romantic fantasy film. It's also known by the name Kimi No Nawa in Japanese, of course. It was made in 2016, and it is produced by Toho, but it's also by Co-Mix Wave Films. I've never heard of them, but I have heard of Toho. And so it depicts a high school boy in Tokyo and a high school girl in the Japanese countryside who suddenly begin to swap bodies.
Yup.
It is directed by Makoto Shinkai, who is quite the famous director now after this. Actually, he was pretty well known before, but
because there was like the Garden of Words or something before this that was really well respected, and then he did this and was like, whoa, this is amazing.
Yeah, this film was in 2016 the highest anime grossing film in 2016. It's the third highest anime film overall, or highest grossing film overall for anime. And then in Japan, it's the fifth highest grossing film ever. It was only recently knocked from 4 to 5 by the very probably now very famous film Demon Slayer. And so I don't know if you know about that.
I do not, but I want to.
No, well, wait. It's 2021 now, so
yeah.
It is. I think it was last year, 2020, when it came out, or was it? Actually, I should look that up right now. Let me look that up, guys, before I run my mouth and get another thing wrong. I was right, 2020. Okay, so before that, do you know what movie was number one?
I feel like it was Silent Voice, wouldn't it? I know that one's really, really popular, isn't it?
No.
Isn't it?
No.
Is that not even in the top 5?
No.
How dare they? That's
so
sad.
the
That's
the highest grossing film in Japan before all of this was Spirited Away.
Oh.
No.
I forget sometimes how many people, because like I'm not overly fond of that movie. Like it's a good movie, it's very well done, it's impressive, but
before that it was Titanic.
Are you serious?
Yeah, Titanic.
Oh
I mean, Titanic is kind of
really,
worldwide.
really good. That's a worldwide,
grossing,
yeah.
So that's pretty expected, I would say.
I feel like I'm still really impressed
Number
with Titanic.
4 now is Frozen, which I am very sad about. Very sad.
Hey, at least it's not Frozen 2.
I don't remember there's a Frozen 2.
You shouldn't. The animation is amazing, and that's it.
Oh, you've seen it?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah.
We're not talking about Frozen or Frozen 2, though. We're talking about Your Name.
Your Name.
And Your Name is on...
It's on my list.
It's on Rosemary's top 10 list. It is not on mine.
No.
But it is on Rosemary's top 10 list. And which one is... Or what number is it on your list?
This is number 7. Is it not? You're staring at it. You're looking at me funny.
You don't even know what it is on your list.
Because we reorganized my list last week, and so I have that in my head, and I believe Your Name was higher, and so my brain just switched it around. But I know that it's towards...
I'm happy that you do have 2 number 7s
It's 6 or 7.
So I guess I do rate this one better than Deadpool 2. But for you, it is lower than Deadpool 2. It is your number 8.
Oh, okay.
Apparently.
All right.
But apparently not, because, people update their lists all the time, and it's now number 7. So Deadpool 2 is number 8, and now this is number 7.
How do you know Deadpool 2 is not number 6, and I've moved things around?
I think Your Name on your list, at least, should be probably number 2. or 3, actually. But we already went through your 2
but this
and 3.
is on my list, and as it talks about, it's a romantic fantasy film, which is obviously one of the reasons why it's on my top 10. I do really love animated films, but most of the animations that have like stolen my heart are TV shows and don't belong on this list. And so this one is, honestly, it's extremely well done. It's definitely one of the best films that have captured this, but it's definitely also a typical...
What is this that you're
Your Name. It's a typical anime style romance. So
this is the romance.
Yeah, it is a little bit more serious, and the drama is good. It's well written, well thought out. Like this could fit in with everyday life. Like this could be something that people experience. And the way that they do it, it's just that subtle magic that is present in the everyday world. And I love stories that do that. And usually stories that do that with this movie, you'd need a whole season. You'd need 27 episodes or 40 episodes in order to elaborate everything in this. And so I'm really impressed that they're able to get it done in such a small amount of time.
Yeah, the first time I saw this movie, I thought after I finished, I thought I actually considered it a sci-fi film and not a fantasy film. This time, as I was watching through it, it's definitely much more a fantasy than sci-fi. But just okay. So for those who haven't seen this movie, we don't want to spoil this for you. I do really enjoy this movie. I was the one that recommended it to Rosemary all the way back when.
Yeah, it's like 3 years
and so
ago.
I do enjoy this movie a lot. But so because of that, right, we don't want to spoil it for you.
So
this is one of those
spoiler-free
movies-
version of the summary is...
Well, the spoiler-free what we just went through, right? It's
Yeah.
just a boy named Taki and then a girl named Mitsuha.
Yeah.
They kind of swap bodies, and they have to figure out how to live with that.
But it does take the first 20 to 30 minutes of the film before they actually come out and say that they swap bodies. And by the point where they
what was interesting was that so the first time I watched this film, it was with a group of friends, and this gal had invited us all over to her dorm to watch it. I think it was her dorm.
Okay.
And we just kind of sat in the living room space where her roommates were there, and we were all kind of watching it. And at first, so at this point in my life, I didn't really like anime. I still don't really like anime that much.
That makes sense.
As a general genre,
It's frivolous.
I do like specific kinds of anime, and so this is the movie that made me realize, oh, there's anime that I do really enjoy watching.
Okay.
And it wasn't the way you enjoyed it, which was it was romantic and all this kind of stuff. But the way I kind of watched it, I was thinking, oh wow, this is really well filmed. And so that's kind of my
Drink number one. It's beautiful.
Oh, right. It is a beautiful film. The cinematography is absolutely gorgeous. There are shots in this film of Tokyo and of the various countryside parts that they've compared to actual places in Japan. And it's almost shot for shot. Like all you would really have to do in the photographs is to kind of take it at maybe a different time of day, so you can see kind of the sparkle of the city or the sunlight or whatever, and you can just see how closely they studied their home country or their homeland in order to create this film. And so, but anyway, so I was watching the film with a group of friends, and since I didn't really like anime that much at that point in time, I kind of asked her, I was like, okay, this is an anime film, what's it about? And she kind of coyly smiles at me. She was like, you'll see.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that might mean I'm not really going to enjoy this. But as the film, within 5 minutes, I go, oh wait, is this kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers with anime? She's like, oh yeah, it kind of is like that.
Kind of.
Oh, okay, all right, this is different. I'm probably gonna enjoy this. And I did end up, of course, enjoying the heck out of the film. It was one of my favorite films in 2016. Arrival actually was also released in 2016, but I didn't watch that film in 2016. I watched the film, I think the next year, something like that. I didn't watch it in any theaters or anything like that. And so this was probably my favorite film in 2016 up to that moment, and it's a really good film. And so they don't talk about the body swapping until they don't make it explicit until later, but there are very, very easy and obvious hints that happen from the introduction into the intro song that a lot of these animes have, and then in the first part where she has, we won't spoil it. So that ends our spoiler-free summary. And now, if you haven't watched it, please go watch it. It's a great film, and we 100% guarantee that 99% of you will enjoy it.
Yes, I genuinely enjoy it.
There is a lot to enjoy about this film, no matter where you're coming from.
You just got to keep in mind, it is an anime, so it is going to have a little bit of fluff, a little bit of romance, and then it's also something where, with the film, it's not slow, but it is paced, and so it does. They do a very good job of the show not tell, and so it's something where as you're watching it, if you're used to just action and go, they do a good job of it, but not as typically as most of us Americans would like it to be. It's not as fast and
I
like in your
wouldn't know
face.
really about that, I guess. I actually disagree. This film is really, really well paced.
It is really well paced, but it's still paced. And most films,
I think it's well. I've never actually. Well, I guess I don't. Maybe I don't look on the online forums enough, but
maybe
I've never heard of anyone complaining about this film in terms of pace. The only real complaint that I've heard about this film, and it's one that I kind of share, and sorry about that, but it's one I kind of share. It's that this film is very basic in its setup and its payoff, and so it's not. The idea isn't very original necessarily.
Wait, what do you mean?
So the idea of people swapping bodies and falling in love with each other,
yeah,
that's not really original.
no,
But it's the execution of that plot
that makes it so stunning.
that makes it so good. It's so we talk about in film we want to show not tell, right? We want to have a character focused story so that there's depth to the story rather than a plot focused one, right? And film is a visual medium that through the visuals you experience something rather than you are necessarily reading about it or anything like that, right? This film does all of those things with aplomb, right? And it's kind of shocking actually that this one person, the director, is also the cinematographer, he's also the editor, everything, all this kind of stuff. And so it's really, really great to see
impressive.
the director's vision so well executed that there's a live action remake that Paramount Pictures is trying to develop off of this. I don't want them to.
No.
But
they have yet to do a single live action version of any sort of animated film that didn't suck. Like, maybe it's okay.
Well, The Lord of the Rings, right?
That wasn't,
So, because there was The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings that were animated in the 80s. The cartoons were pretty good. They were very endearing.
Yeah, endearing. I can live with endearing. They're endearing.
Yeah,
okay?
and then the movies came along and they.
Okay, I'm also
knocked it out of
female
the park,
though,
right?
and so like with the cartoon, no one in the cartoon is attractive. Like not even Aragorn. Like no one's attractive in the film or no, in the cartoon.
I don't know if they were
so
designed
for
to
the
be that way, though.
film, it helps. I enjoy it, and so it's a different.
It was made
experience.
in the 80s, right? The mid 80s, and so I don't think
so.
animated films at that point were meant for to be
because there are animated films. There are animated films that were done in the 80s and mostly the 90s, but there are films that were done in the 80s that were for the purpose of attractive characters.
Which ones?
I hate this. Now I can't think of any.
I can't think of any either. That's why I said what I said. I really can't think of any. I think that trend started in the 90s.
It might have been late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, I think that trend really started
Possibly.
in the 90s. Probably with Aladdin, I would say.
No way.
Aladdin was 92, right?
Oh, wait, no, Disney counts. Well, Snow White came out in when was that? And
that guy was attractive.
He was reasonable. He was more attractive. Him and Cinderella, the first 4 Prince Charmings are all identical. It's actually one of my favorite little fairy tale things. Is the idea of what if that's all the same Prince
He's
Charming?
He's just a polygamist.
Or yes,
or
he murders his wife.
Yeah, right. He kept killing his wife, or his wife just kept dying.
No,
so
they actually there's a story where they were engaged, and I think he married Cinderella. But the other ones, I think he was engaged to them, and then he broke it off.
Yeah, they all look the same.
Yeah.
Are they all actually the same person?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm pretty sure they all have different names.
But they all look the same.
They all look the same.
They might have a change in hair color.
Yeah.
I think this one in Snow White is brown.
The hair color is a little darker in Cinderella.
And then it's gold.
Oh,
wait. Yeah.
It's darker in Cinderella. It's lighter for Snow White.
Yeah.
But it's still same face construction.
I guess, I am a guy, so I've never thought Snow White was attractive. I've never thought Sleeping Beauty was attractive.
I liked Sleeping Beauty.
Cinderella was... No, I never thought she was attractive.
And Prince Philip did actually have a name, and he does look slightly different.
Yeah, but I just never found them any of those characters attractive.
Interesting.
But,
okay. All right.
You know, I grew up with Aladdin and Jasmine, and so Jasmine was a very attractive
Jasmine
lady.
is extremely attractive.
I
and
thought
Aladdin
was very
attractive.
scrappy and attractive and all that kind of stuff.
The
Kinda like
only
Han
weird
Solo
thing with
of that.
Aladdin is he doesn't have nipples.
Oh, I don't know.
That's the only thing that, and it haunts me.
Doesn't the
It
shirt
haunts me.
like cover it? No, that's interesting. All right.
Because the shirt moves every
Maybe
once
that's
in a
a hint
while.
to all the
It's
single
this
guys
really
out there.
weird
If you really
thing.
want to attract some people, just cut off your nipples.
No. But,
Anyways.
yeah.
So
Fun
yeah,
fact.
I never thought that way. I guess.
Okay.
About, yeah.
I don't know.
80s.
Anyway, but with this film, okay, wait. So spoiler version. Spoiler version of this film is basically you have the body swapping thing, which you honestly, if you're paying attention, you figure it out in the first 3 minutes, honestly. But
Yeah,
then
right after the song, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, with the
she
boob
wakes
touching,
up, he
that's
he
a
touches
little,
her boobs,
Yeah.
and then the switch of her going to the living room, and
Yeah.
she's the girl, right?
Yeah.
This time as I was watching it, I'm really I don't know what version you watched. I always watch the sub, not the dub.
No, I always watch the one with subtitles. Every once in a while, someone will convince me to watch it with the dub, and I'm like, I hate you. Why did we do this?
Well, apparently the current generation of dubs in English aren't so bad. I'm just not. For me, when I watch anime and I watch it in the dub, it's very strange to me because the way that animes are created, they're created with a very, I don't want to split people up, but just kind of an Eastern mindset of how characters should be. And I think it's very difficult for Western voice actors or actors to portray those kinds of characters.
Well, and also Western language is different. And like one of the things
Well, sure, yeah. You can say like the lip syncing doesn't really match and all that kind of stuff. But that's not what I'm going for.
No, not
but
even with
rather...
that. Just like the literally, like the energy of Western words is not going to convey the same kind of...
Oh, I disagree with that.
Really?
Yeah, I disagree with that a lot.
Interesting.
I think it's more to do with a culture where
So the
in
culture
Western,
of the actors, not the words.
in Western culture, the male is a very dominant force.
Yeah.
And that's, there's no good or bad about that. It's just that's the way it is, right? Whereas in Eastern and Asian culture, the male is a very hardworking force, and it's different. And so when you have there's a certain lack of anxiety that happens when a male voice actor from the West portrays an Eastern character.
Wait, there's a lack of anxiety?
There's a lack of anxiety, and it's very strange
Aww.
because when you see certain characters, so like people like Taki, and then other male characters in anime, when they're kind of going about their childhood and everything like that, there's a certain kind of embedded cultural anxiety that a lot of Asian males have, and it doesn't exist when the Western voice actors do their thing. And you can hear it, and it's really weird because it sounds like the person is very confident in disconfidence, and it's just very strange to hear.
With
from me.
Eastern culture?
No. So when a dub happens, right, a Western actor dubs.
They're very confident
Eastern.
of their
It's like they're confident of their lack of
confidence.
confidence, and it doesn't jive very well.
Versus with Eastern culture,
Where it's an embedded kind of disconfidence, right? And you can hear it through the voice, and it's very strange.
So it's something they're not even conscious of.
I think it is that you're not conscious of that, and I think if Western kind of dubs want to dub artists, I guess, dub voice actors, if they want to do something a little bit more accurate, I would encourage them to study. First of all, study Eastern culture and embed yourself in that culture and see how people react to you.
Become Asian.
Right? Well, I mean, culturally, right?
Yeah.
In that culture and kind of understand the atmosphere of it. And it's very, very different. And so there's a level of kind of shame, respect, honor, and just a collective idea of who people are that is very different from the West. And so when that happens and I'm watching a dub, a lot of times when I watch the dub, I'm like, there's something wrong with this dude. Right? There's something wrong. Well, female wise, it's a little bit different, but there is watching it. It's like there's something wrong with the girl. Like her voice doesn't match her personality in her face, in her actions.
One of the things with that is that Western women tend to there's like a boldness that's just it's a little bit more brazen rather than subtle.
Right.
And so, and then I'm intrigued by the because as a brazen American woman, I can hear the difference and I can tell the difference. But I've also just associated enough things that like I can reconfigure the way that I view the animated versions, I guess, versus with the male side, I'm just like, oh, okay. I wouldn't have picked out that, but now I'm trying to reconfigure what I'm hearing and paying attention to now. Interesting.
Yeah. So I always watch the sub version of this. What was I talking about before that? Completely forgot at this point.
Spoiler summary.
Well, yeah, we were talking about the spoiler
talky.
summary.
Sounds.
Oh, right. So
different.
So she kind of comes in, and then she was talking to her grandma, and then both her little sister and the grandma are like,
You're supposed to make breakfast.
You were really weird yesterday.
Oh,
right.
You're not possessed today.
Yeah, you're not possessed today. that was really interesting. So, yeah, from that you can immediately tell, okay, something is off. So.
Okay, so body swapping happens, and they start falling in love with each other over the course of a month before a comet hits and destroys the town of Itomori. I believe it's, yeah. And so Taki, the boy, ends up waking up one day and no longer being able to body swap with her. And he's like, wait, where did she go? She dropped off the face of the planet, not realizing that, boom, another plot twist. This happened 3 years ago. The comet hit the town 3 years ago. And so he was body swapping with someone who, in this time period, is no longer alive and isn't here with them. And
yeah, that's where I thought it was a sci-fi film rather than a fantasy film. I kind of still think it is. It's really a great mixture of both.
It's a sci-fi fantasy.
I guess. So the way that people a lot of times like kind of categorize them, right, is sci-fi is more could be, right, and fantasy is more fantastical, right? So
well, they're both could be's, but they're two different kind of could be's.
Right, and so a lot of people. So for example,
could be based on science, could be based on hope.
Yeah. Well, that's
no.
I don't know if fantasy is based on hope. I think fantasy is just based on dreams.
So science versus dreams, but science and dreams work really well together.
Right. So you have, but a lot of people would take science fiction as its own genre that's opposed to fantasy, right?
I feel like that always bothers me.
That bothers me too. Yeah.
And like I'll talk about it later, but that's an actual thing that I'm like, I hate this. I hate that there's a battle between the two. They should work together.
So, I think the issue would be that a lot of sci-fi tries to explain things, whereas a lot of fantasy just leaves it up.
The mystery is allowed.
The mystery, right? And so, but this one
is both.
Both. It has the mystery parts to it, but it does try to actually explain certain things just in a spiritual sense rather than a completely materialistic sense.
You could also say metaphysical instead of spiritual. It's in a metaphysical way.
No, I don't think it's metaphysical.
It's kind of metaphysical.
I don't know if you know what metaphysical means.
If you want an exact definition, then yes, I'd need to go look one up. But the sense that I have is that most spiritual things can be referenced to as metaphysical. And so with this...
No. So...
The whole energy standpoint of the connection and time and space being
metaphysics
more
is
fluid
just
than we
about
feel
the
it
nature
is.
of reality, right? It's not about spirituality.
What number was Arrival for you?
Arrival was number 9.
Oh, okay. Because part of me was like, this is kind of like my Arrival. Wow, that's almost a pun. Anyway, but it's kind of like that where the idea of time and space not being linear. With this, they play with that.
Yeah, a little bit.
And so, not as in depth as Arrival goes, but they do play with that a little bit. And so it's something where the metaphysical part for me is the idea that everything being connected is a metaphysical principle. That's not a concrete science thing. They've done a lot of things. There's still a lot of people that don't agree with that. there's still a lot of science people who don't agree with that stance. So with the connection, with the time unraveling, with being able to have this, and then also blending it with the spiritual, blending it with the emotional of like
Right.
you
So
wake
my
up
point was
crying
only that
and you don't remember
metaphysics
why.
isn't necessarily about spirituality. They have relationship to each other, but
I
they're
would say
not
it's a
one to
very
one.
it's like the like almost finished eclipse Venn diagram, but sure.
Oh, I guess I 100% disagree with that.
But
And so if so in the spirituality aspect, they're talking about the Shinto religion and how they view connection points and everything like that. And in that spirituality, that using that as kind of a more mystical explanation of what's going on with these two people. And I really appreciate that actually. There's a lot in this film that is it's kind of this film kind of delves into the connection, like kind of the collision between people from a countryside mindset and then people from the city mindset. And you have that kind of dichotomy there. Not dichotomy, but just that meeting point, which is what this kind of film has. It portrays really well. There's a kid who is living in Tokyo. There's a girl who's living in the countryside, and the countryside is not necessarily backwards, but it's about 20-ish years behind, right? And why are you smiling like that?
Because I watched this with a friend, and he started singing just a small town girl living in a lonely world, and now it's playing in my head as you're talking, and I'm like, okay, fine.
Do you want to sing the rest of that?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm good.
You're smiling a lot, and it seems like you really want.
I'm smiling.
You're bursting with
It's
the song.
amusing. I'm not gonna sing the rest of the song. It's not happening, guys. But yeah, no.
Let us know if you guys want to hear her sing that. Just one comment, and we'll have her record. I forgot.
Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me.
Well, we'll see. All right, so
make me sing Journey. Fine.
I mean, actually, it used to play in my music store that I worked at over and over and over and over and over.
No,
We
that
used
hurts.
to have Journey just up on the screen, and it would be the same concert
Yeah.
just playing
Yes.
over and over.
Yeah.
It was kind of annoying, actually.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. No. At
But I'm blessed with not
it was a
having
John
to
Mayer,
memorize
and I
that.
hate John Mayer.
Oh, we had
so
John Mayer,
on top
too.
of it being John
Oh,
Mayer.
no, we didn't have John Mayer. We had Dave Matthews. I think we had John Mayer. But it was one of his like solo performances.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah. All right. Anyways, sci-fi fantasy.
But yeah,
And-
so it has several plot twists, and one of the things that's really well done in the film is the fact that it gives you a plot twist in the very beginning of the whole body swap thing. So you're like, oh, this is the plot twist. This is all there is. This is okay. And they do subtle, and this is to be fair, this is the only the second time I've watched this film. Or
and
third
it's on
time.
Top 10, guys.
It's in my top 10 after. After the first time I watched it, I was like, this is fantastic using all literary devices. And I was just so impressed, guys. Like, it was just so much. Anyway. And so with that, watching it through this time was one of those, like, there are so many hints about the comet. It is literally
It's the opening
all
scene.
hinting to the no. There's like 6 or 7 different references to the comic before the comet hits.
Oh no, but I'm just saying it's the literal opening scene.
Oh yeah, it's the literal opening scene, and like I
Oh,
didn't
no.
realize that the first time, and so it was just really impressive and just going through. But they give you one plot twist, and so when you get the other like 3 plot twists, it's like whoa, wait a second, okay. And like the first time I watched this, I actually cried because I was very unhappy with like her being dead. I didn't like that.
Oh, so you cried in the middle of the film.
I cried in the middle of the film, and it hurt, and I was very upset. And then I actually did.
Yeah, I remember sitting in that living room,
Yeah.
and when that happened, when he realized it was 3 years ago, and then he saw her name and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff, I was like, whoa, I didn't expect that.
No.
I didn't.
No.
So now that she's dead, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
in my head, I was like, what are we going to do with the film? Because you just spend
There's still
so
the
much
rest
time.
yeah.
And then, of course, she's still alive. So
No, I kind of assumed that they were gonna do something like that, but it was still like it hurt. And then I also cried when he wrote on her hand, and then he only got the one
that's
line.
when most people, I think, in my group cried.
That hurt.
That was such a good scene.
Such a good scene.
It was this time.
And then he was such a cute little idiot. He didn't write his name. He didn't write his name. Sorry, it hurt, and it was so cute at the same time.
I think that's the point of this film.
I
right?
know.
But that moment where she is about to write her name and then it drops immediately into the pen going onto the ground. That is such a well executed scene.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was the moment.
The friend I watched it with laughed. He started laughing at that. He's like, "Of course, this is."
Right. Yeah. That was my reaction.
Yeah.
Well, my reaction was, oh, of course that happened.
Yeah.
And then my second reaction was, wow, that was executed really,
So
really
well.
because everyone in my room just went,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and because they didn't do a slow motion or anything like that,
Nope.
it's just a boom. Nope, there it's gone. It's done.
Yeah.
It's like what? And the
Very,
abruptness
very well done.
slaps you in the face.
And yeah.
Yeah, and then just I guess the couple of parts where he cried and he didn't remember why he was crying, and then I think the second time that she cried and didn't know why she was crying, and those were the two spots where I teared up. I don't remember crying at that, but this time it was still just the strong. Like, that sucks. That you have this really strong emotional reaction and you can't even remember why. Ooh, no.
I think this film is a really interesting take on dreams. And because a lot of times, especially if you don't practice, so if you're someone who well, I mean, it's not, as far as I know, taught in schools.
No.
But one of the things that I guess if you grow up in a spiritual environment, is you learn to write down dreams, right? You learn to have a dream journal, and what that does is it actually helps you to remember what you're dreaming a lot better when you wake up.
Yep.
And of course, being
Tip from this movie: handwrite it. Don't type it into your phone, because if it disappears, you're screwed.
Actually, that was a part that I really didn't like.
I didn't like it either. It didn't make sense.
Well, right. Well, they could have made it make sense. If they did it along the lines of, in the beginning of the film, they had some kind of thing where like a glitch happens in a moment and the phone kind of messes up, right?
Maybe.
And so if you have that hint foreshadowing, then that part makes a lot more sense. But when you watch the film over and over, that's the part that really doesn't make sense, because in the end she survives, right? And so why would those
or
texts
if at the
happen?
end they put them back in the phone because she's no longer dead.
No,
which means
because
it happened.
she was not the one that texted him. He was the one that was entering those texts, right? And so it's kind of it's a piece of the film that does not cohere very well, but in the moment it works because you have
that
this
loss
kind of
a
Back
dream.
to the Future kind of thing where he loses that dream.
Yeah.
And so so if you grow up in an environment where you're told, hey, you want to write down the stuff and help you remember your
They're
dreams
great for
better
story
and,
purposes.
and I mean, well, there's other more spiritual aspects to it as well. But of course, if you don't do that, right, you do have a lot of times you do have trouble remembering your dreams. And what happens is that over time, just like this film, you forget what happened in the dream. Yeah. Right. And it's a really interesting take on it. I've recently been reading a lot of, and I kind of just found out about this author a few months ago, but I've been reading a lot of Jorge Luis Borges. Yeah. And Borges writes a ton about dreams, and it's fascinating because it's a realm of knowledge that, at least in the West, I think we've kind of lost that curiosity about dreams and the dream realm.
The Western world doesn't invite the mystical. It doesn't invite the spiritual. It doesn't. deal with the deeper aspects of the soul and how the soul handles things and processes
Well,
things.
I don't really agree with that. I think it's just the West has a certain way of viewing those entities, and it doesn't necessarily cohere to
Okay.
maybe honoring those things
Yeah.
in the same way that a lot of others
It could, I guess, just
do.
be different. Because, like, I am Western, but the religion that I grew up with, the faith that I grew up with, is an Eastern religion. And so there is that sense of spiritual. It is. He's making faces at me. It is.
It's not really.
Okay, it's not like Asian Eastern, but it is Eastern. It's considered an Eastern religion.
Smack dab in the middle of the.
So it's neither
Eurasian
Western or
African.
Eastern if you want to go for it.
Right,
It's still not
it's-
Western, though.
It's middle.
Anyway, point is that with that almost gap between what I'm used to socially and what I'm used to as far as like the people around me and what the people around me believe versus what my personal faith is and what I believe in my core, they're two different experiences, and so I have experienced more of a chasm between spirituality in Western culture versus Eastern culture.
Yeah, and so I guess I'm not going to comment on that for now just because of the podcast. But so you don't remember, right? You don't often remember what you have in your dreams because in a sense you don't practice remembering, right? And so the reality of not remembering the name of the person that
You fell in love with
you've in that realm
and
kind of fallen
intimately
in love
know.
with. And it's probably really tragic, but also
And their name
I
gets
think
said constantly because you're living their life, so that you get called on as
Right.
their name like so many times.
right. So I think it's really interesting. Let me finish the thought first. That idea of forgetting, it's kind of heartbreaking, right? But it's also very easy to empathize with it because I think a lot of, at least in my experience, a lot of people have the same kind of, man, I had this dream and I know the high points of the dream,
Yeah.
but I don't remember what led up to it and I don't remember what happened
Yeah.
afterwards, right? Or you maybe woke up at the high point of the dream, which happens a lot, right? And so, but trying to remember that dream and all this kind of stuff, you're like, oh, I can't remember it, and so it's very you empathize with these characters. On the other hand, I wonder if she had remembered, right? Would she have remembered? Because it was across the course of several, I don't know, I would say it was a decent amount of time where they were swapping bodies. So she clearly has some kind of memory of going to the toilet, some kind of memory of walking out the door, some kind of memory of the apartment, some kind of memory of walking around, right? And so if she had remembered, would she have been able to, when she moved to Tokyo, been able to find the apartment complex like the way that he found Itomori when he was drawing the place?
He seems to be more, I don't want to say organized because she was organized, but it was different.
Right.
His
it's
organization was
different.
different organization.
Yep,
And so with him, he had the drawings. He had the things that,
that was
he
his
saw,
kind of skill
and then
and
he
talent.
had the notes in his calendar as well, that his little journal entries. She didn't have those. So I feel like
Right.
it would have been more like she would have moved to Tokyo because I think she didn't she?
Yes.
Yeah, she moved to Tokyo. And so she would
least
have
according
found
to Weathering with You.
Yeah, she would have Wait, what?
No, I was just saying, according to Weathering with You, they both appear in that film.
Oh.
Oh, sorry. All right, never mind.
Oh.
I spoiled it.
Oh, that is so cool. Anyway, okay, sorry. Point is, she, in my head, would go and she would have remembered, like, she would have walked into a restaurant and been like, whoa, I remember this. Oh, okay, cool. And, like, gone to different places that she went to in his body and be like, oh, I remember this, and be like, wait, why do I remember this? No, I've never been here before. Okay, maybe I dreamed of it. Maybe this is a thing. Like, this is just
Right.
deja vu or whatever. And so it gives ground for dreams and for deja vu. And
So the question would be, in a sense, I mean, if we're going to take it out of what you would call the metaphysical, but if we're going to take it out of just, actually, it would be out of the metaphysical in my sense as well, because I don't agree with what you said.
That's fine.
But if we're going to take it out of, there you go, the fantastical. There you go. If we're going to take it out of the fantastical
Fine, that works.
and think about how that correlates with reality,
Okay.
right? I mean, I know of people that do have dreams of the future. I know of people that, well, actually, so,
Mhm.
I don't just know of people, but anyways, but you have, people who claim to have dreams of the future and they happen, right? And so what is that? Is there an aspect of the dream realm then that kind of is outside of our minds in a sense, right? And I think this movie kind of explores that a little bit. Not a little bit. It explores that a lot, right? But it's it's much more subtle. It's not trying to overtly say this is reality, but rather that it's that exploration of that idea, right? And I think that's really interesting to think about. If our dream realms are not just in our heads, what is the proof of that? Well, you can prove that in a sense in your own life if you have a dream of the future, and then that
really
future
hope my
happens.
dreams aren't reality in any way. Like,
Right, and then
they're
there's
fun.
those people.
There's stories. No. There's stories,
There's
but
people
okay.
like you.
No, as in like I had like because I do actually write down half of my dreams. Half the dreams I remember I do end up writing down, but one of the dreams that I had was this. I think she was. No, okay. So it was actually a body swap thing, but it was like the 5-year-old was in like the mom's body, and like the mom was in like the 5-year-old, and then like the kids were trying to figure out what's going
like
on.
13 going on 30.
And no, it was a little creepier than that. And so it's something where the kids are trying to figure
creepy
out
version of 13
where
going on 30.
the missing sibling is, and so it's something
Maybe
where
you should write this as a story.
I have it written down. I just don't have it as like
No, like write
done.
it out as like a plot, characters, all that kind of stuff, like a fictional story.
Yeah. Well, I kind of want to. I do actually, and I actually have a story that I'm working on right now. I don't know what I'm doing with it, but it was actually a dream at first, and so I'm fleshing it out a little bit more to see where the plot holes are, because there are plot holes. So I'm trying to figure out where the plot holes in my dreams are.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of films. So this is another thing that. This is more to do with not Western versus Eastern, but more like if you have there's like hard and soft magic systems,
Yes.
right? Where the hard magic system is it's almost
I say this thing, I do this thing, I get this result.
right. It's a science basically.
Yeah.
It's not really magic
Yeah.
at that point. As much as you go towards that side of the continuum, and then there's the soft magic system where it's more like there's not really rules, but there's things that happen. Right. And so, but I think you can apply that to world building in a sense where you
should have both.
Well, and so a lot of people think that there are plot holes that exist in a story, but really it's just a soft version of the world that doesn't really, you don't need to necessarily. Right?
If you do show not tell correctly, you can pull that off.
Well, I think this film does it really, really well. Yeah.
Sorry,
So
we were talking about my dreams and stuff, and I was just like,
oh, we can go back to your dreams if you want.
Right. No, like if you do it right, then you can make that work. But
right.
But yeah.
So I think this film does that really well. Where and again, that's where I kind of merge the sci-fi and the fantasy together. Where you have I mean, in a lot of Rosemary is correct in this sense. In a lot of Eastern religion, you have more mystery than you have explanation, right? And the mystery becomes kind of the part of the explanation, if that makes sense, right? And that's very, very much illustrated here.
Yes.
Despite there being this is what I was talking about before with the countryside and the industrial world, we have the meeting point between those, right? The industrial world being the science world, the countryside being the fantasy,
yes. Okay,
and they
cool.
meet. Right, in a really great way, right?
Yeah.
And you have the Shinto explanation of what's going on, but of course that's still a mystery. You go, okay, we don't really. I mean, are you just supposed to drink a bunch of sake?
Spit sake.
Yeah, spit sake.
Spit sake.
Right, but of course that's not really how it works, right?
Yeah.
And I think this movie does that, or shows honor to that, or respects that explanation really well, because again, we don't remember, right? We don't really know. We don't know how it works. It kind of just does. And I think that's what that in a way is a lot of what I really love about this film, and a lot of like films, anime films, especially out of Japan. So for example, things out of Studio Ghibli, they don't necessarily want to explain everything, but rather you have
They explain what they think is important, and then everything else
what's
is
necessary to the story.
Yes,
Yeah.
which, okay, in my opinion, is what they think is important.
Right, yeah. I'm
and
agreeing.
then
Yeah.
cool. And then moving forward, and you can kind of it's irritating and beautiful at the same time.
It's
of
really
just,
great. Yeah.
It's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's just good, and like there's energy in you at the end of it of just like, wait, I want more,
Right.
but like it's good that they didn't have more, because then there'd be like this closure, but then I'd have closure, and
But is the closure really there?
Exactly,
Right?
and it's
so
just
it's a little bit like there's a director and a producer named J.J. Abrams. He's very
Yes.
very famous.
extremely famous.
But he's very famous for this one thing that pisses a lot of people off, which is his, I think it was a TED talk or a TEDx talk about the mystery box. And it's a very, very famous talk. Almost everyone who kind of looks into J.J. Abrams, that's probably one of the first two things that they study from him, right?
Oh, okay.
And he talks about this idea that there's a mystery box, and the reason he doesn't want to open it is because it'll solve the mystery, right? And so he's had this box since like he was a child or something like that.
Okay.
And he's never opened it. I don't know how true that is, but that's the story that he likes to write. He likes to write these mystery boxes, but when you open the mystery box, there's another mystery inside, right?
Yeah.
And that mystery is the explanation for this mystery box, which is the explanation for this other mystery, and so you just have a continual mystery, right? And it's at one point it's very frustrating for people who really like closure, but if you I'm not saying you don't have to like closure, but just if you like the idea of
If you can
exploration,
accept that you don't need closure.
well, if you like the idea of exploration rather than explanation, right, then this becomes a much better way to tell stories. Because at the end of the day, when people are talking about your stories, you want them to be exploring your stories, not saying this is good or bad, right? And so in this way, I think this film, if you wanted to take it that way, you can use it as kind of a jumping point to explore the idea of what are dreams, right? What is reality, right?
Yeah.
And how does reality correlate with our dreams in a sense? How do those two meeting points kind of merge?
Yeah.
And so I do really appreciate this film.
Well, and
on
the
that
depth
standpoint.
of character is really nice too.
Okay.
Because with Mitsuha, for example, like, yeah, she's pretty much a basic like small town girl who like wants to leave, but they do a really good job of showing her as more than that. And same thing with her friends. Like, you actually learn a lot about her friends in this, and so it's not the characters. Pardon me. The characters aren't one note. They actually have they're 3-dimensional beings who have wants and desires and emotions and feelings and dreams, as well as plans and fears and anxieties. Like you pointed out, there is, now that you've said that, there is an anxiety about most of the men that are in this, or the boys that are in this, and like needing to work and needing to get a job, and it's a thing.
It's replete. All men.
Yeah.
All the men in this have it.
It's very interesting.
it's just
Yeah.
it's part of the culture.
Yeah.
And if you go to Japan, if you go to Korea, if you go to Taiwan, if you go to any Southeast Asian country, and I'm obviously, well, I guess for our listeners, they don't know, I'm Asian. And so being from that culture, of course, being in a mix of that culture, right? Because I grew up in the States, and one of the things that you learn is to be able to navigate these different cultures that you're a part of. But if you're paying attention, you kind of start, especially as you get older, you start noticing these things, the differences. And so I think that's one of the biggest things when you step back and kind of just see it. You're kind of going, oh, that's the difference that I'm seeing. There is no imbibed. The negative version of this is there is no imbibed culture of shame, right? And that's very, very easy to see in the voice actors of the West, right? There is no imbibed culture of shame, and so
Interesting.
Because that doesn't exist, you don't have a certain anxiety in your voice when you portray these characters.
I feel like the culture of shame is different.
I'm saying the negative side of this. I'm not trying to say that it's all negative, right? I'm just using that as an example of what that picture is.
Okay.
And yeah, you can see it as part of the culture when Mitsuha or Taki as Mitsuha first goes to confront. Well, actually, when she first sees her dad, and her dad's like, "You need to stand up straight," right? And that's very Asian,
hurts.
to be honest.
Yeah.
But then when Taki is Mitsuha and he goes to confront the
Yeah.
father, he gets really angry and just like grabs him.
Yeah.
And there's that moment of surprise of going the realization, hey, you're not my daughter. Like, what did you do? Because my daughter doesn't act like this. My daughter doesn't have the gumption to actually act like this.
Yeah.
What the heck are you, right?
Yeah.
And then when she at last confronts him,
Yeah.
right? Oh, this is where I was going. Wow.
Oh!
All right.
Okay,
Don't
gumption.
interrupt me. No, don't interrupt me. So, sorry. If you want to hear the thought. So when she confronts him at the end, she has a completely, she has a her demeanor about her, right?
Yeah.
And you can see it in the animation. You can hear it in the voice. And this is what I was going to say at the very beginning when I lost my train of thought. You can hear it in the voice actors. When Taki, the voice actor for Taki, is acting as Mitsuha, he has a very, very different inflection in his voice.
Yes.
Than when Mitsuha acts like. Sorry. Oh no. Sorry. Okay. I gotta do this correctly. So the voice actress for Mitsuha, she does her voice differently as Taki versus herself, right? And you can see it and you can hear it in the voice.
It is
and
somewhat
the
subtle.
animation. If you're paying attention, it's really not. Because if you're, I'm not saying you didn't pay attention. Sorry, that's not what I meant. But when you're paying attention to that kind of stuff, I guess it's
Probably wasn't.
probably. But it could also be right because you're listening to a different language, so you're kind of like not really, you're not understanding it, right? But you can hear it in the inflection of the voice. So that was what I was saying before. I don't know
That
about the
makes sense.
dub if they did it that way.
I
Right.
thankfully haven't watched the dub, so I can't
maybe I should
speak
watch
to that.
the dub and
dear
see if
God.
they did. But it's very different. Like when she is Taki, like she is male. Like it's very, very
Yes.
fascinating to hear the change in her voice. And then when she's Mitsuha, she suddenly becomes so male. She portrays the male anxiety, and then when she's Mitsuha, she portrays the female demure, kind of subservient attitude. And it's really a fascinating change that happens in that voice acting. So I'm very, very impressed with the voice actors and actresses, I guess,
Yes.
in this film.
Yeah, the actors did a
That
really,
was my
really good
point.
job.
Now we have to go back
Woo!
to
It's always
what
really
you were
fun.
saying.
No, that's kind of what I was saying though, is the idea that, and most of it is to do with the voice actors and the animation itself. But the writing of the characters is really well done, and it has depth. It's not just these random people who experienced a con who are doing the bodies. Like they could have made this boring. They could have. They could have made this like one note where you have this boy and this girl who
they
happen to
could've made
meet
this
and you
into a
don't
horror
really get to
film if they
know
wanted
them.
to.
They could have made it a horror film. You're right. That would have been fantastic. But that would have been more like Possession or something.
Well, it would have been a very interesting tragedy to leave her dead.
It would have been a very interesting tragedy to leave her dead. I actually thought, because you recommended this movie to me, I thought that was what was going to happen. I 100% she's dead. She's dead. She's staying dead. And there's no change in this because Isaac would do something that cruel to me. He'd be like, this is an amazing movie. And then not tell me anything about it because he didn't. And then like watching this atrocity happen in front of me of Comet, Ground Girl, dead. And then love is destroyed. And I was just like, I was heartbroken. That was part of the reason I cried is I was like, oh my gosh. There's no way to fix this. There's no way that Isaac would totally do this to me. And so when she's not dead, I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you. I appreciate it. So it was.
I sound like a cruel person.
You are. It's intelligent. Okay, you are intelligent. You are occasionally merciful and compassionate, and you are very analytical in some of the best ways, and I appreciate your criticisms and other things and feedback. Like I love your viewpoint and your opinion. Kindness is not something that can be attributed to you.
I don't think I'm kind to your emotions necessarily. I don't know if
You
that's
think
a
you're
measure
kind
of...
to me?
Yeah.
Like, wow. I don't ever want to see cruel Isaac if this is the kind version
there's
is what I've experienced.
There's a backstory to me that is
That's fun.
much worse. But
Anyway,
but I don't think
okay.
I think it's correct in a sense. I don't think I'm very kind to people's emotions, necessarily. But you know, yeah.
I would say that you're often somewhat nice, in my opinion of nice, not everyone else's opinion of nice. But I feel like kindness.
I don't know if I'm
is a
nice.
little-
I don't think I'm a nice person.
I think that your niceness is your own brand of niceness, and I appreciate your brand of niceness, but it's not typical social nice, which is probably why I respect that niceness.
Yeah, I'm definitely not socially nice.
No.
Yeah. So
Anyway, but with this, the characters they have depth. They have, I don't know, this. And one of the other reasons why it's in my top 10 is because it has a well-written happy ending. I like the ending. I think it's good.
wait, which
and it
one
was
of my
very
films
nice.
it does not have a happy ending?
Most of them.
So Matrix has a happy ending.
I didn't see it that way the
Arrival has
first
a happy
27
ending.
times I watched it.
Arrival, I think, has a happy ending.
Arrival has a bittersweet, mostly depressing, but also beautiful happy ending. I would say it's a beautiful happy ending. I wouldn't say it's a happy ending. Or beautiful ending,
Right,
not a
I
happy
would say
ending.
it's a beautiful ending,
Yes.
not necessarily happily ever after ending.
Mhm.
I think that's better though, and rather than just a pure happy ending. I think this film has it has a beautiful ending. It doesn't necessarily have a happy ending. You don't really. I mean, maybe you don't, but maybe you don't care about this. But I mean, 500 people did die in that disaster, right? And
Wait, that didn't change? I could have sworn that changed.
So there were still people. I mean, there. Did you
No, that
see
changed. The news changed. That was my understanding, was that he
So
went
there
back
were
and they
people
shifted
that,
it.
Right. There
Some
were
people died, but
yes.
not.
So there were still people that died.
But
Right?
yeah, but that happens in most stories. When you have
Yeah,
something
sure.
this big and this catastrophic, you can't get away with not killing people.
Well,
You
can.
can't.
You can.
Not with it being good writing.
Right. So that's my my
Well,
case.
and for me, it's a good happy ending. It's a well-written happy ending. That's my. You can't get in my top 10 unless I consider it to have a well-written happy ending, and because there is darkness, it's never happiness is a reward. What is the reward for? It's for everything that you've gone through up until that point.
There are a lot
And
of
so-
films. Or there are a few films now on your list that have a question mark over, but we'll get to that later.
Point is, it
So
has a
Blade
well-written
Runner, I
happy
think,
ending.
has a
Oh, Blade Runner?
decently good ending. Right? It's not a happy ending. It is. I think it's a good ending. Big Short is, I guess, not a good happy ending.
No.
Prince of Egypt does have a happy ending.
Yeah.
Tropic Thunder, which is on both of our lists,
That
doesn't
one-
really.
yeah, it does.
It kind of does.
It does.
It kind of does.
The only person who actually dies is the director.
Well, it's not about death or not. It's just the fact that the you're in this world of this institutionalized gluttony, and
The cute one
so
gets Jennifer Love Hewitt as a girlfriend at the end, or at least a date to the Oscars.
I don't know if that's a happy ending.
Everyone there, as far as I'm aware, because What's-His-Face is able to give up, well, as far as we're aware, What's-His-Face gave up the drugs. And then the other guy got to deal with, Robert Downey Jr. got to deal with his multi-personality acting style.
Right. So characters grow.
Yeah.
And so I would say those endings are happy. Right. So all of these, all of mine, then they're all happy because all the characters grow and overcome a weakness.
No.
Yeah.
All
I'm
of your
agreeing with your
characters
criteria. I'm just
grow.
saying that all
Well,
the
again,
characters.
for you, most of your movies, because I think the only one that you don't think of has a happy ending is
The only
The
one
Big
that I
Short.
can think of is The Big Short.
Yeah.
I think it has a good ending.
Yeah.
I don't think it has a necessarily happy ending.
Yeah, versus for me, the only one that I agree with on your list is I agree with Tropic Thunder, and then a couple of the ones that we haven't watched yet, and I could be persuaded about Arrival, but I really don't think that counts as a happy ending. Dark Knight does not have a happy ending. That's depressing, dude.
I think Dark Knight is a really great ending.
I know. It is rare. Dark Knight is well written and it's so impressive, and like they made Batman
I'm happy
something
with
new.
all those endings.
Okay, I know, that's fine. And I respect your top 10. I absolutely respect your top 10.
But
you do not
thought
respect my top
that
10.
No.
I
But
like my top 10.
You thought because of the movies that I liked that your name would have a sad ending? Given
Yes.
that all the
No,
films that I
okay.
have
I thought
I guess the
that it
majority
would
of
have a
which had a
happy
good
ending when I started, because you were like, it's a romance. And I was like, okay, all right. And then when she died, I was like, Isaac, you've done this to me. What have you done? How dare you do this to me? I can't believe you. Like, I was prepared to like be aggressive with you the next time. I was going to say yell, and I'm like, I probably wouldn't have yelled, but I would have been upset and loud.
Oh, I wouldn't have cared.
I know, but I would have felt better after being upset and loud with you, of just like, how did you do this to me? But then she was okay and she lived.
But then you might have got fired.
I wouldn't have done it in the store.
Oh, then then
I'd been kicked out
outside-
of the coffee place, but
Oh right, because
yeah,
we were
yeah.
we were working in the
But,
what was it called? Clatch.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
so
yeah, and so it's something we're with.
your
this.
name does have a happy
It
ending.
does have a happy ending, and then it's also,
I
as
do
Isaac
admit
pointed
that.
out, it's beautiful cinematography. Beautiful cinematography, and it's a
Yeah, I
magnificent
think
film. It's
This is the film that made me want to visit Tokyo. I haven't
Okay.
actually visited Tokyo yet, and so, but I still do want to, just to see. One, I do want to see in person
Mm-hmm.
these shots, and then so which means I actually should probably go visit the countrysides and
Yeah.
stuff as well. But I do want to kind of see where they got that inspiration, because it is very. It's a portrayal of a city. It's a fantastical portrayal of a
Mm-hmm.
city. And by fantastical, I mean fantasy-like. So not fantastical as in this is fantastic, although
Yeah.
it is fantastic. But okay, so I should say probably romantic version of Tokyo. So you have to kind of recognize that. But just to kind of be in that world of all these going ons and stuff I think would be very cool to experience.
It would. Well, and one of the things is, okay, so you like the animation for Prince of Egypt. This is the first animated film that gives me a sense
Mhm.
of that style of animation, where you actually want to go visit it, and they film it as if it's a real place, as if
Well, it is a real
no,
place.
like as if you were using real people and real places with real cameras on set.
Oh yeah.
It's beautiful how well they do it. And so the fantastical part is also based in making reality just a little bit more fantastical and a little bit more perfect, and still maintaining a lot of the flaws. And it's just
There's a film aspect of this particular film, but also in a lot of recent animes, which I really appreciate. A lot of times, so the thing with cartoons, I shouldn't say cartoons, but just animated features, a lot of the times, whether it's kind of like a cartoon episode or it's a film or what have you, short, is that prior to around 2000-ish, there was an attitude of you can't move the camera when you're animating. And so even in this is part of the reason why when they started doing this, I think in the 90s a little bit. So like in what was the film? I can't believe it. The Lion King. Wow. All right, so in The Lion King, when you have that pan around the lion when Simba and Mufasa are sitting there staring out at Pride Rock, right? When you have that,
I
it's
didn't
so
realize that was
impressive.
special.
Yeah, because it's impressive because you've not really seen that in an animation before, right?
Okay.
Prior to that, it's all still cams or pan cams. So
Was Tarzan after Lion King?
yes,
Okay.
like 5 years. No.
Hey, keep in mind, because I'm pretty sure Tarzan came out in 97, right?
Oh, is it?
I think so.
I have to go look that up now. I think I'm pretty sure Lion King was 94 or 93, and then oh man, I have to go back and see it.
I wanna know. Can you show me? I'm sorry, that was terrible. I'm usually better.
No,
at
go
that.
go for it.
No,
Go sing
late.
for our audience.
Too late.
They are
I'm not
listening.
doing that one. Stop it.
You can sing Circle of
1999.
Life. 1999.
Which means I was 2. Which
Oh,
means
Tarzan
that for
was
me,
1999.
and
Oh, yeah.
because Tarzan did that.
I was like, Lion
And
King
so
was
for
not
me, I was thinking
1999.
like, wait a second. And so for me, Lion King is amazing and impressive. However, for me personally, Lion King wasn't special. It wasn't impressive to me because half of the stuff that they did in that movie had already set the pace for other movies. And so
Right.
other movies got the chance to impress me rather than Lion King. So the Lion King, like I know so many people
by the time you
love
watched
the
it-
Lion King, and I'm like,
Well, by the time you watched it, you had seen the influence, right? And
Yes.
so that pan was
it wasn't
kind of
wasn't
all
special or
over.
impressive.
Yeah. Well, even in Tarzan,
I liked Lion King 1.5.
Tarzan did not really have shots. It still went by the more
Yeah.
traditional kind of, you have a painted scene
Yes.
and you kind of pan around in that scene. So what I mean by sorry, I should say rotation of camera, right? So in Lion King, you have that rotation of camera that doesn't really happen in most animations in that era. But starting around mid 2000s, I think it really happened, or the impetus for Western animation, at least that I know of, was Atlantis, where they really on purpose tried to make it look like it was shot on film. But of course, it's
They tried.
hand-drawn, right? And so they try to use these camera work things, and then kind of shifting to this, I guess, past decade, because now we're in 2020, 2021. But the decade of 2010 to 2020, you have much more camera movement start to be added into animation, and you can see a lot of that in this film, where you have shots that are shots. They're not just how do you say it? Like they're not just a painted background. There's not just painted scenery. It's really appreciated when a film does, or an animated film does that really, really well.
No, it's impressive. So, and then the last thing, which also leads us into the next segment, is the idea of like this movie uses a lot of stuff that I want to work on. And so, like I said, with dreams, just even with that alone, probably half of my stories are based on a dream that I had, honestly. And the other half have all benefited from different things from my dreams affecting me and changing the way that I view things, or allowing me different plot techniques or different words or different ideas for characters to add depth and create better scenes for the stories. And so just with dreams alone, that's a whole subject, as well as, like I said, I love Arrival, and I have several stories that play with the concept of time and linear time versus non-linear time, as well as just the romance and allowing how fast and how deeply you can actually fall in love with someone simply by getting to know them on very intimate terms. And so
very intimate. I mean,
very
they
intimate.
swapped bodies.
They literally swap bodies.
They had to go number 2 as each other.
Actually, I feel like that would be the less embarrassing one. I feel like it'd be more weird to go number 1 as the opposite sex. I am also female though, so it's also a little bit more of a switch. But nah, I don't.
Well,
I feel like number 1 would be more
difficult. In both cases,
difficult.
your bottom half is you're not wearing pants.
So I guess it's uncomfortable in that way. I guess it's also like I'm pretty sure that most people do number 2 the same way. Like we all sit on the same toilet, or not the same toilet.
I would
we all sit on
imagine if
toilets.
you're a female that body swapped with a male, you would probably feel more comfortable on the toilet rather than at a urinal. So she probably went to the toilet rather than using a urinal.
Probably, yes. I forgot about that. Oh my gosh, public bathrooms. That would have been uncomfortable, as walking, like the guts to walk into the correct one as not yourself.
That probably could have been a scene they added where they just kept like like messing it up because they don't remember.
And then
right?
These people are just screaming at them like,
Right.
"Get out!" It's like, I'm sorry.
Well, no, they wouldn't have been screamed at.
Okay, right, Japan,
in Japan,
not America. America, they would have been screamed at.
They would probably like have these looks, and they would like suddenly like, oh
You're
no,
like, oh no,
yeah, like. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why actually a lot of anime you have the facial expression. So in Western emojis, right? Before you actually had real emojis. Remember, you had to. I don't know if you actually did this. I don't know if you're old enough to do this.
end parentheses and
right. So
colons
Western
and
ones was like if you want to do a smiley face, it was the colon, dash, and then parentheses, right, to do the smiley face. But on the East, we didn't have that. We didn't do that for smiley face. We just did. We don't really have a. Oh, we did have a smiley face. It would be greater than sign, and then the underline dash, and then another and a lesser than sign. And so what that does is that it highlights the eyes. So Do you see it? You
That
can't
was a
see it.
smiley face?
So-
Wait. Nope. I need to do this now. No, what is this? Okay, so wait.
It could also be
less
the
than?
X, but the X sometimes kind of signifies death, and so you don't really necessarily want to do that.
Within the
So-
thing.
So greater than sign, and then a underline, right, and then a lesser than sign, right, and so that would be like a face. So a lot of the faces that you would do in the West are just kind of like it's about the mouth, it's about the character of the mouth. But on the East side, you had it was more of a character of the face, so a lot more to do with the eyes. And so another one would be, for example, it would be big zero, and then underline, and then small zero, right? Or two big zeros with an underline under it. And that came from the East because our attention is on kind of the face and how like when you're surprised,
how
you're like, oh
emotion is
no,
displayed.
right? And so so that was kind of from that side. And it's really interesting in anime. You can see that idea. The facial features are very often still human, right? So not like Western animation where it's all out of whack. But they're still human, but you can kind of see like when the eyes go really small, and then you have these little shades under the cheeks, and then like the little water droplet. Yeah, the little water droplet that you like
when you're nervous.
the kind of if you can't see the eyes and it has the what do you call it?
The shine on the glasses?
No, when you can't see the eyes at all. So the hair suddenly drops.
Oh,
you
and
can't
it's
see
dark, the
eyes,
shading? Yeah.
And then you have the
it's like bad mood.
red thing, and then the little droplet. That means they're really angry, right? That's the Asian angry, right? And then the embarrassed is eyes come right to the center, become really small, nose really small, mouth really small, and then the face is really huge, right? And so
it's really cute.
It's these very different ways that we show. Just emotional expression. It's really fascinating to see. Yeah. So I think that's really fun to take note of as you're watching anime and everything.
It's impressive, and it does help, and it does help with the depth, and it's also immersing yourself in stuff like this and then working on writing is a little tricky because then you're like, wait, I want to do this. I want to express all of this without boring my audience, without boring myself, while still displaying everything that's going on inside of the character. And it's definitely interesting trying to do that.
No, I'm kidding. I don't know.
Don't do that.
Twilight,
to me.
right? They do a lot of inner dialogue, right?
They do a lot. Actually, okay, that was one of the reasons why the first couple times that I read that series.
What's her name? What's the author's name?
Stephanie Meyer.
Stephanie Meyer, right.
She
does a lot of...
The first couple times that I read that series, I didn't think it was amazing. Like, I didn't think it was the best thing I've ever read, but I thought it was good. I thought it was okay. I was also...
When you said that, I didn't believe you.
15.
I'm just kidding.
15, 16, and I borrowed the books from my high school library, and reading it all the way through, I appreciated that because it makes... I did, actually. I did.
That's why I don't believe you.
I did.
I'm just kidding.
Well, and so actually, okay, that's not true. I read 1 through 3 first. I didn't read Breaking Dawn until later.
Is Breaking Dawn number 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the last one. And so I read the first one, and I
think you
liked
explained
it.
this to me in another podcast.
Yeah, and then I read the second one, and I actually really liked book 2. And there's
I do
much
remember.
in her head.
The first one is called Twilight.
Yes.
Second one is called Blue Moon.
New Moon.
New Moon. Third one is called Eclipse.
Yes.
Oh, got it. And I just forgot the fourth one. Breaking something.
Yes, Breaking Dawn.
Breaking Dawn.
I also really like the titles. The flowers. The cover illustration is simple and beautiful. That's honestly half the reason why I wanted to read them in the first place.
It's like an apple
the art.
with 2 hands, right?
Yeah, the first one is an apple with 2 hands. The second one, I actually don't remember what the second one is for the life of me. But the third one is like this flower that has the virus marks on it, the red, and then it has blood on it as well. And then Breaking Dawn is the chessboard. But it's really simple and elegant at the same time. And it's the weirdest contrast. But I really like that. Anyway.
Is Twilight the time between like sundown and evening?
Yes.
Okay.
Or because they actually talk about in this movie, and it's something where Twilight is it's not quite the golden hour, but like it could be morning, it could be evening, but you're not 100% sure, except because unless you know exactly where the sun is. Like if you know what direction the sun is in, then you know where it is. But yeah,
in English language is
essentially
between evening
it's
and
like
night, right? Like it's that, or
I
sundown
thought it was
and
before sunset.
night. Okay.
There might be two, but I could have sworn it was before
I'm just
sunset.
trying to connect
it might
the
be
titles
after.
in
It
my
might be
brain.
after sunset.
So it's like you have the twilight, and then you have a moon, right? And
Yeah.
Then, but I don't know where eclipse falls.
No, because you can have a
that.
lunar eclipse.
Okay, and then after the eclipse
then-
lasts for all night, you have some like dawn.
No, it's just the next. I don't know. I don't know why she chose those names.
I'm trying
It's
to
possible.
connect it in my
It's
brain
possible.
because I'm trying to make sense of it all, but
Yeah.
I don't know enough about their books, yeah, or the films. But
Well, it actually makes. See, I don't know. No. We
It's
don't need to go
supposed
into full depth.
I'm trying to like build meaning out of this because
Well, with the okay, Bella's the main character. You could also do it from the standpoint of at twilight she meets Edward and she starts this kind of glow. She's acknowledged as having this otherness to her.
oh, I just mean by
without
the
being
titles.
different. Yeah, no, I know.
Like it's
so
a progression
Twilight,
of the night, right?
Oh yes, okay. I thought you were trying
That's-
to go in depth with it, and I'm like, why are we
No,
going in depth about
I'm-
analyzing Twilight right now?
Well, because you said you wanted to do character like thoughts and be able to
Yeah.
in your writing.
And that was why I liked this series, is because originally, and it's still kind of, I haven't read it in years, but it's still a guilty pleasure. Like I know that I wouldn't be against rereading it, and like my brother's girlfriend and we actually watched the whole all the movies, like unironically.
Oh, I thought
We, like,
sorry, for some
unironically
reason I
watched
thought
the
you
movies.
switched back to Your Name and I was like all the movies.
No. We watched all 5 movies.
There are 5.
There are 5 because they split
Oh
Breaking
right,
Dawn
yeah,
into.
you told me that too. I
Yep.
think, yeah. So
but
there
yeah,
are-
we actually unironically watched the movies. It was still something where
okay.
there are parts that aren't very good, but they're still enjoyable. And so it's something where same thing with the series. It's not very good, but it's enjoyable, and you can tell what she was going for, or I can tell what she was going for, even if she didn't actually get there. And so part of that is she did want to go in depth with the characters, and so you are very intimately aware of who Bella Swan is and every thought in her head because she shares it with you. And so it's interesting. Anyway, and so I don't want to go quite that in depth because that is a certain level of insanity that I don't want to do. But
how would you do that with the example here, because we're doing Your Name, or we're talking about Your Name, and so how would you associate that with Your Name, I guess, in terms of writing inside the person's head, because a lot of Your Name is
visual.
Right, film is visual, and so when you have it's difficult to pull off. Well, I guess Arrival did it really well with narration from Amy Adams, where you can hear her talk about it. That was horrible with Blade Runner when you had Harrison Ford do the narration.
See, but
of course
Arrival, they did it on purpose. They
don't-
wanted to do it.
Right, we don't talk
Runner,
about that version of Blade Runner.
Never again.
And so, but here you don't have any of that. What you have instead is just you can see it on the way that the characters are animated. So when Taki is in Mitsuha's body, or when Mitsuha, I think one of the funniest things is the first time that you see Mitsuha in Taki's body and he's meeting his friends, all the guys, right, are just like chill, lax, legs spread, all this kind of stuff.
She's
and
doing
she's
a little,
very
like,
proper, like
knee
this kind of
thing.
she's bent. Yeah, it's the funniest thing. Like even the girls on the side,
Yeah.
they're not sitting like her. They're kind of a little bit more chill. They still have their
Yeah.
legs together, but
Yeah.
they don't. They're a little bit more chill. But she's all proper and all this kind of stuff. And so you can see that kind of that portrayal of character in terms of the characters' mindsets. But then a lot of the other ones is when they're texting each other, right? They're not really texting each other. They're writing it in their diaries and everything like that. And so that in that way you can hear their thoughts.
Yeah.
And so that's how they did it in Your Name. How does that translate into what you're writing, in a sense? Or have you even thought about that?
I have, and it's tricky because of the fact that they flip back and forth between protagonists, And with my stories, there is usually one main protagonist. There's not two main protagonists. Like, even with the love interest, for whatever it is, there's still a fully developed character, but they're not the main character. And so I guess now I'm trying to think, because so for example, with the apocalypse story that I love, the dialogue that would happen, or the thoughts that would happen between characters when she thinks she's going insane, so he can kind of say or the main antagonist, or I guess main villain. I'm just gonna stick with main villain. So she's the main protagonist and he's the main villain, and she thinks she's losing her mind. He's actively encouraging this, and so it's something where he can kind of say whatever he wants to, but because of her powers and because of his powers, there's actually this mingling that takes place, and so they can actually, to a certain extent, depending on how guarded they are, hear each other's thoughts. And so it's something where he actually has his guards up most of the time, so that way, but he doesn't teach her how to do this, so he can hear her thoughts like 90% of the time. She can only hear, like, I don't know, maybe like 20 to 30% of his. And so that sharing, that's mostly unintentional, that's mostly involuntary of...
So you're taking it as in they're sharing their thoughts with each other?
No. Yes and no. It's being able, and again, this is something where, like, I haven't quite written this, and so this is something that I'm working on. And with the writing of this, where you have this character who's losing her mind, and so this other character knows that he has a little bit more freedom to be himself, you have the thoughts existing, and so you have this intimate view into this other person, and with the villain, he's been alive for 1,000 years. He's been alive for 1,000 years, so he has experience that she does not have, and so that flood of memory, that knowledge, and having that, as it's almost as if she's experiencing it with him at times. And so,
all right,
it's difficult to describe because I haven't figured out exactly how I want it done. It's something I'm working on.
I was just saying, in terms of, because you originally were talking about how you wanted to show the thoughts of a certain character to the audience, but it sounds like right now you're talking about more of the story aspect or the plot aspect of how the characters can talk to or can hear each other's thoughts. I was asking about the previous one, not necessarily. But
with it being shown to the audience, or because I write my stories for me, so with these thoughts being unveiled for me and for my readers, it's something where the idea of, like, most thoughts are, or at least my thoughts tend to be a little bit more fragmented, or it's actually really difficult for me to think inside of my head, because I already have, this sounds weird, but I have different voices in my head. They're all the same voice, but different, like, timbres, different levels of volume, or different aspects to them. And so it's something where my voice, my own personal central voice, I usually use it.
Okay.
Sorry. I like timbre.
When you said timbre, I was like, wood.
I know. I don't like
falling
timbre.
Wood.
Timbre, like, yeah. I will say it how I want to say it until eventually I give up. But
well, I'm just saying, when you said timbre, I was
like,
what? What? Oh, timbre. Okay.
Yeah, no. But it's just not something, I didn't grow up saying it right, and so
no,
haven't.
I'm not trying to make fun. I didn't know what that word was. I was like, okay, timber is a piece of wood that's falling in the forest. What does that have to do with? Maybe voices are falling in your head. Oh no, wait, it's okay.
If a tree falls in a forest,
she's saying
and no
the
one's
word
around.
timbre, but it's yeah, right. So right, yeah, it's spelled timber, right?
Yeah,
but it's
it's the reverse though. It's R-E.
Right, yeah.
So some people will say timbre.
Timbre, yeah. So I'm just not used to. Yeah, that's
fine. But yeah, and so it's something where, for me, I usually, especially when I'm by myself, I will just say my own personal, like, central me thoughts out loud, because it helps me stay focused and clear without having my other thoughts try and, like, outspeak that one. And so with writing this to the audience, it's something where often there's like a back and forth of what gets said out loud as like, this is my actual thought, this is my actual phrasing, this is what I mean, this is me, this is central to me, versus the thoughts that are written, that are in the character's head, that are happening, and there's significantly less control over the thoughts, especially as she's losing her mind. The idea is there's less control over the thoughts, so they're a little bit more fragmented, and they're almost fighting for attention. They're fighting for that front space of being in reality, of being something that she sees, she visualizes in her head, or something that actually leaves her mouth. And so it's the war inside over what is the most important, or what is what fights to be at the front, or what fights to be in focus at that point for her. And for his character, there's a little bit more control, so it's less of a war and more of like chess, of like he selects his thoughts. Like there's a little bit more active involvement and control, because he's had a long enough time to be able to take care of that, so that way if someone paid attention, if someone actually has the power and the ability to pay attention to him, that he and his thoughts are safe. So
Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, so this movie, again, well written, happy ending, and then the whole multiple plot twist thing of, I love that idea of, you have here's a plot twist in the very beginning that like you kind of make them guess at it, so that later on when plot twists happen, they're expecting it significantly less, because you've already given them a plot twist. You've already given them this thing. And so for this other thing over here that's like just like, what?
Well, that's pretty normal now, I think.
It's significantly more normal.
Especially in anime, I would
Definitely
say.
in anime, but not in like Western film.
Right. Yeah. So I think one of the things that this film did for me was, or I'll say two of them. This first, as I said in the beginning, this film kind of opened my palette to watch more anime, and come to appreciate more anime. This isn't on my top 10 list, but it is to me a very, very good movie still. And it got me to the point, it was so good, in fact, that it got me to flip a little bit on the way that I view film. And it's been a progression since then, but basically since then, the journey has been, for me, I really appreciate and like animated film a lot more than current day live action films, the majority of current day live action films. And it's just probably because after this film, I started looking at how animated films were created and all this kind of stuff, and I gained a really massive appreciation for the houses, both in the West and the East, of the animation houses that have to kind of do all this stuff. And but another reason would be kind of when you're animating, more so than I think live action, every part of the film is the director's vision. And so in certain films, in certain live action films, you might not be able to get the exact right actor that you want, right? Or the actor in your head does not fit the actor on the image or on the film. Another example is maybe, especially before CGI became so big, right? You might not have been able to find the perfect location for your film to
or been allowed to go there,
or been allowed to go there and everything like that. And so there are these compromises that you have to make in live action that, I guess, being as a creator, kind of control freak in a sense that way, I don't want to make those compromises.
And so you'd rather get it done right.
Right. And so in animation, you can kind of almost enforce. I mean, you have to still compromise with your artists and your voice actors and things like that.
Yeah.
But more so than live action, in animation, you can see a better picture of what the director envisioned, from the character movements to the scenery to the cinematography to just basically everything, right? You can kind of see how the director really wants the story to look and be experienced. And so this film really turned my head around on that, because of just how gorgeous Tokyo is in this movie. And so that's the first one. And then the second one was the realization that despite being so good, Your Name is a very basic movie plot. It's very, very simple. There's not much complexity about it. I mean, the summary of it is probably the shortest that we've read from Wikipedia. It's just from Wikipedia. It's just it depicts a high school boy in Tokyo and a high school girl in the Japanese countryside who suddenly begin to swap bodies, right? And of course, the genre is within a romantic comedy film, and so you
Well,
understand.
there is a little bit more to it than that, but that is essentially like
That's
the main
the essential.
thing.
That's the essential
Yeah.
component of the film.
Yeah.
Yes, there's the swap of bodies is also, you know, you have the time aspect to it and everything like that. But it's a very simple film, or simple story. But what it did was it took that premise and it made the way it was kind of filmed and the way that the story meets out and the way that the characters are revealed and grow, just the way that it was done was so good that, you know, it became, I think in that year it was the highest grossing film in
Yes.
Japan, right?
I thought it was the highest grossing film for several different countries. It wasn't just
Oh,
Japan.
right. No, so sorry. I'm reading it now. It was the highest grossing anime film of 2016.
Yeah, that's
Right.
what yeah.
Like of all of 2016.
So I remember you bragging about it to me, and that was one of the things that you said.
And so that the execution of that simple plot made it so great. And so in a sense it turned my ideas around, in the sense that I was always kind of searching for what's the next original idea that I can write. And now I'm no longer looking at that. Although I do still like original ideas, or at least I like coming up with them. But it's no longer kind of, I have to have an original idea for this story to work. It's more like, how can I tell this story that I have in a way that is drawing to people? And I think Your Name is one of the best. Well, again, it's not on my top 10 list, so but it's still, to me, one of the best examples of a film that.
Well, like
does
if you had to
this
do like top
super
10
well.
animated films, would this be on there?
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I have.
I
you
know.
Animated films
Yeah.
on my list, and so this didn't make it, but it is very close. If I had to do a top 20, this might be in it. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
But yeah, so that's a lot of the reason why I like this movie, and it has affected my work. Honestly, it hasn't affected my work as much as some of the other movies in my top 10. And part of that's only because I've watched it 2 or 3 times.
Right.
But it is something where I do love how simple it is. And it helps me remember, because sometimes I have that like fan fiction writer syndrome of like, everything needs to happen right now. There need to be 10 plot twists. This character needs to be over here. Like, there's so much going on that you never just allow the simple beauty of a story to tell itself. And this movie does a really good job of that. And so it is deep without being extremely multi-layered and complex. It's not there to baffle you. It's not there to confuse you, and it's not there to
Well, it does baffle you a little bit.
It baffles you a little bit, but
baffles you to make you appreciate it.
Yeah. It's
not confusing, but it kind of is like, oh wow, like that.
It's kind of, but it's like watching a flower bloom. It's something where like the science behind it is really cool, but you can also just appreciate the fact that the flower is blooming.
Depends on the flower.
That is true. Sometimes if you get one of those like meat-smelling ones or whatever, or the carnivorous flowers, those don't smell good. Those don't.
Yeah.
No.
So.
But
all right.
Yeah. So now
we are done with Your Name.
Yes.
And we can go on to the next segment, which
Yes.
is drawing from the hat. And I believe I drew
last time
for Your Name. So this time it's Rosemary's turn.
This time it's my turn.
So drum. Oh, let me hand you the hat.
Yeah.
And drum roll. And the next movie is going to be Departures. Nice. Okay. Departures.
Yes, Departures. Delightful movie.
Okay. But by our different reactions, I think you know which movie
You'll figure it out.
This belongs.
Yeah.
Or which list this movie belongs on.
Ironically, this movie also requires subtitles. Please listen to the actual version that requires subtitles.
So this is a non-English film.
It is not a Western film. It is not an English film.
Okay.
I don't even know if
Foreign
they have it
film.
in English. They might have a dub. I've never seen that one.
A foreign film. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
it's good stuff.
Looking forward to
This is also
watching.
this is the one movie that I still have hope that Isaac will like really like.
Well, this is the last movie on
I know.
our lists that I have
yeah.
not seen.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty
So
not excited.
I'm
say
hopeful.
I'm hopeful, yeah. I'm anticipating a
hopeful.
good future, hopefully.
We'll see.
I am
He needs
anticipating
to
a good
let me
future
know.
because if I don't like this will be, at least, all the movies that I know I won't like.
Movies
they'll
he knows
be
he never
done.
needs to watch again.
Yeah, basically. Well, wait, last week I said, or was it last week? No, was it the week before? Something like that. I said I would probably watch, which one was it? Knight's Tale again.
Yeah.
Right. No, that was not last week. That was
the week before.
That was the time before that
Yeah.
we recorded. Yeah.
Time before.
So Knight's Tale.
One of my movies
is
kind
probably,
of won him over.
Well, I would probably watch it again.
Yeah.
I think I would watch it again. I think I said I would watch it again to look more at Paul Bettany's performance. Right? To see what he did with that character because
so good, dude.
he did a very good job with that very funny character. And so I appreciated that. All right, so next week we're going to be, or not next week, sorry, next time.
Next time
it's
on
not gonna
Bread
be
and
next
Thorns
week.
podcast.
It's gonna be every 2 weeks. We're going to be discussing departures. But before we depart, we are going to
go into our
Dine
Dine
segment.
segment.
So the Dine segment,
Yeah.
I don't have a quote this week.
I do. Well, it's not a
Rosemary
quote. It's a
does.
joke. However,
it's a joke.
Just as a little reminder, just for fun, the Dime segment is where we share the wise or ridiculous words of others because they're worth a little bit more of our own or more than our own at the moment.
Right.
So,
we can only give 2 cents while other
yeah,
people can give
give 10.
dimes.
They get 10 cents. They get 10 cents for their thoughts. So this 10-cent joke is, hey, Isaac, what does a clock do when it's hungry?
What does a clock do when it's hungry? I don't know. All I can think of is like TikTok.
It goes back for seconds. Like it goes back 4 seconds. It's fantastic. It
Okay.
was delightful. It made me happy.
I was trying to figure it out. It goes back 4 seconds.
Yeah.
When it's
Okay, fine.
hungry.
What do you call a belt made of watches?
What do I call a belt made of watches? A belt made of watches.
He's
Man,
trying.
I'm trying, but no.
It's called a waste of time. Come on. He doesn't appreciate my humor. I hope you guys appreciated
I'm
that.
just trying to figure out.
You got a 2 for 1 today as well.
Waste is like.
Yeah.
I understand the pun.
Like a waste of time.
but
It's a
it's
belt
not your
of
waist.
watches. Okay, women wear belts around their waists.
I know, but it's not your waist. It's a belt. It's a thing that goes around your waist.
But it's a waste of time, Isaac.
But
it's
it's
a
not your
waste
waist.
of time.
It's not your waist. It's a thing that you put around your waist. What did that have to do with your name?
Just playing with time.
Oh, okay.
Just literally just.
Wow.
Okay, one last one. I want to try one more time. Okay, so
no, it's okay. Yeah,
why
you can fling
wait.
a dozen of these at me.
Why should you never eat a clock?
Why should I never eat a clock? I guess it has something to do with time. Okay.
Yeah.
So, why should you never eat a clock?
Huh? You got this.
Something about 8?
Nope.
No? Okay. All right, no.
It's too time consuming. Nothing! Okay, he's
That
kind
one's
of.
pretty good.
Yay, okay. Yeah, okay. On that note of it being pretty good with a little inflection there, I guess that takes us out today.
Yeah.
So
We'll see you guys next time with
yeah.
Departures.
have a great day.
Bye-bye.
"俺君をどこかで
私も君の名前は